So today we're going to be ranking all the Warhammer books I've read. So this year I've been really getting into the Warhammer books. Obviously, I used to do like a reaction series a few years ago on Warhammer, but I never really read any of the books. And one day I just decided to start reading Warhammer and I kind of really got back into it. So I didn't really want to review each book individually because I'd read so many and had made no videos on it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a tier list and rank all the books I've read so far. I think there's like 30. Most of them I do the audiobooks because it's just easier. I would definitely recommend you do audiobooks over reading some of them. This might be a decently long video. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments. If you have any recommendations, also let me know in the comments. But without further ado, we're going to get into this. I've got the tiers here. I've got must-read books that are kind of just, if you like Warhammer, you might as well read them because they are that good. Very good books that are just very good. Self-explanatory. Memorable books that I can remember, you know, things I remember, events and stuff that happen in the book. Not the best, but you can read it if you've got time. Forgettable books that I probably don't remember what the hell happened or anything important from the book. Probably a waste of time to read it. And then Heretic, just absolute dog shit. I will say, Warhammer novels, they do tend to go up and down. Some of them can be pretty shit. I will caveat it with saying I haven't read that much Horus Heresy. I'm getting into it now. I think I'm currently on Flight of the Eisenstein. Most of my books are 40k books, so if anyone's wondering where all the Horus Heresy books are, I've only done 3, and they will be on the list. This is in order I've read them, hopefully. Close enough. So we're going to start off with Eisenhorn, Xenos. I've only read the first one. I've got the whole omnibus, but I've only read number 1 because I'm not going to lie, I find it incredibly boring. And a lot of people say you should start with Eisenhorn. It should be the first book you read in Warhammer. I kind of disagree because if you want to get into Warhammer, Eisenhorn could literally be from any fantasy universe, not necessarily Warhammer. I found the book quite boring. I mean, I guess if you know nothing about Warhammer and you want to recommend a Warhammer book to someone who doesn't know anything about the setting, sure. But I feel like most people that want to get into reading Warhammer books at least have a little bit of knowledge, or they've watched a lore video, or they have a faction they like. I think it'd be better for them to go there. I mean, the book's not horrible. I'll say it's forgettable. I mean, I'll get to reading the other 2 books eventually. I just found the first one so boring. I'm not going to lie, that I don't really remember what happens. I just remember the only part I found interesting was the part where there's an Emperor's Children Space Marine in it. Apart from that, I kind of was bored. You know, it is what it is. Probably an unpopular opinion. Next, we have Lion, Son of the Forest. Now, this book, I'm not going to lie, this book is amazing. I would 100% recommend anyone who reads Warhammer to read this. Second book I ever read, mainly because I found the Lion very interesting. I had, obviously, at this point, I'd only read 1 Warhammer book. I wanted to read something with the Primarchs, and when I saw this book, I was like, the Lion, someone I'm quite interested in, one of the coolest Primarchs in my opinion. I'll go and read it, and it's honestly amazing. Kind of the story of the Lion waking up from being entombed for what, 10,000 years. He's got new abilities, trying to remember who he is. He's discovering, you know, the nature of 40k, obviously, because he's been gone for so long. And then he's also got these new powers and he's trying to kind of rediscover everything, his legion, finding out everything that's happened. I just think it's a really great story. And unfortunately, when I was reading this book, I had so much stuff to do, so many assignments to do, and I had to stop. And it was bothering me so much that I couldn't finish the book because I really wanted to read it. One of the books that I really couldn't put down in terms of Warhammer. Amazing. Amazing book, especially for 40k and a Primarch book in 40k, because a lot of the 40k Primarch books don't even have the Primarch at the center of the book. Like, he's just making an appearance, and there's one book like that later on the list. Lion, Son of the Forest, one of my favorite books for sure. Next, we have The Infinite and the Divine. I listened to this on Audible, which was actually amazing. I'm not gonna lie. It made the characters so much better. It made Trazin, and I think it's Ocarin, is that his name? Oh no, Orokin. It made them so much better. Like, this is premium Necron banter. Awesome book. It's kind of these 2 really funny Necron characters trying to get the same artifact and showing all the cool Necron powers they are. Literally, if you like Necrons, you just read this book. It has everything. I understand maybe it's not the most beginner friendly, because if you know nothing about Necrons, you might be a bit confused. But honestly, if you like Warhammer, you should definitely read this. This is a must read book for me. Probably top 3 books I've read in Warhammer. It was amazing, man. On Audible, they just give them such funny voices and everything. Is amazing. Next, we have the Black Legion series, Talon of Horus and Black Legion, which I listened to next. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to read these books, maybe read some Horus Heresy first, at least the first few books, so you understand who most of the characters are in it and what they've done and how they've got there. Or you might be a little confused. I was a little bit confused at who some characters are. Not that it makes a difference. The book is amazing. It's by one of the best authors in 40k, in my opinion. It's Aaron Dembski-Bowden. He's definitely probably the best author there is. Almost every book he writes is amazing, whereas for some authors, they are very hit and miss. But Talon of Horus, essentially, it's just Kaon, this Thousand Sun sorcerer. Gives you a little bit of context on what it was like for the traitor Marines right after they fled the Imperium. And then it's this whole story of him and a few others finding Abaddon, the vengeful spirit and all of that, and basically them forming the Black Legion. And it was amazing. I would also put this in must read. In terms of understanding the 40k chaos setting, especially the Black Legion, it's a must read book. And Black Legion, the book, is going to go right there next to it. Essentially a direct sequel, and yeah, just as good, if not better, than the first book. 100% would recommend. The characters are so cool, the story is really good. the narration of like Kaon basically narrating the whole book and explaining the Black Crusades and everything. It was awesome. And then the final part of Black Legion where Abaddon faces Sigismund, also pretty wicked. Next, we have the Fabius Bile trilogy. Fabius Bile was just a character I was kind of interested in, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you just hear about him, he's just like this fucking weird mad scientist Frankenstein character. And I was like, this is one of the books I want to read. Unfortunately, for a lot of these books, if you really want to buy physical copies, you're probably not going to be able to get them, just because Games Workshop don't really do reprints. I guess you'd have to buy it on the secondhand market, and when there's a limited supply of these things, they are in some cases hundreds of pounds. Like, I'm pretty sure the Fabius Bile omnibus is stupid expensive. I think this Fabius Bile is a really interesting character, although the book itself, the trilogy itself is pretty hit and miss. I think Primogenitor, the first book, is pretty good. I'll put it in memorable. Like, it kind of gives you an introduction to the character, what he's doing. At this point, he's still kind of somewhat aligned to his legion. Like, obviously Fulgrim's been missing forever and the Emperor's children are shattered. Fabius Bile was kind of the only high-ranking member around to take control. You have like his apprentice Oleander trying to almost trick him or manipulate him into taking control of the Legion again, and then he's kind of conflicted between building this superior human race or taking it over. And you see in this book him kind of fighting with that, and him going around and also beefing with other Chaos Lords and all that. Was pretty cool. I think this series really shines though in Clone Lord. I think Clone Lord is very, very good. The most famous thing from the Fabius Bile trilogy is probably the Fulgrim clone, and this is the book that basically he discovers the Fulgrim clone. Yeah, the whole storyline with that's pretty awesome. Trazyn is also in this from Infinite and Divine, which just makes it so much better. I think this is the peak of the trilogy, because the final book, Manflayer, I found it so boring. Like, this is a whole sort of arc of him vs the Dark Elder, and the Dark Elder kind of capture, I mean, this is going to be a spoiler, but they capture Oleander, and they start going around killing some of his apothecary people that were in his like apothecary group, right, trying to find him, right? And it's because Fabius Bile essentially just scammed them out of knowledge. He went to them, went and learned their ways and of the web way, and just scammed them, and now they hate him and whatever. And you don't see that part anywhere. I don't know if there's like a short story of that somewhere that I missed, but it feels like there's a massive time skip between 2 and 3, and it's just confusing. And the Dark Elder characters, no offense, they are so boring. They are so absolutely boring. Every scene with them in, I was just bored out of my mind, I'm not gonna lie. So for this, I'm gonna put it, I mean, it's memorable, but I'm going to put it down here. It's probably better than Eisenhorn Xenos in my opinion, but I didn't enjoy it that much. Next, obviously, as you can see, I was kind of in the Fabius Bile mood at this point. Gene Father, this is kind of Fabius Bile vs Belisarius is cool. Pretty cool book, even though it's kind of just filler arc. It's kind of Belisarius is cool mainly, and you kind of get an insight into what he's doing, and Alpha Primus. Quite a good introduction to those characters if you haven't seen them already. And then it's kind of Fabius Bile kind of tricking him and trying to steal, essentially he's tricking him, saying he wants to steal the genetic material the Emperor or Guilliman gave him to improve the Astartes and all the Primarch DNA. Essentially, he actually wanted Alpha Primus and to steal his DNA to further on. Obviously, we haven't seen, I don't think, anything come after that for Fabius Bile, so we don't know what he's done with it. But yeah, pretty decent book. Is it better than Manflayer? Meh, it's okay. It's a pretty forgettable book. I wouldn't say you have to read it, you know. It's a nice little extra if you like both characters. I'll definitely say that the portrayal of Belisarius Cawl is a lot more fun than the portrayal of Fabius Bile is in this book, at least. Next, we have Horus Rising, which I was kind of reading at the same time. I actually read this in a physical book copy. A lot of people love Horus Rising. Like, it's the start of the series, all this. And Dan Abnett, I think he's probably one of the best authors in the space as well. But personally, I found this book kind of boring throughout the most part. I think it's just capped on how good it could be because it's an introduction, and he has to introduce so many characters. He has to introduce not just Horus. He has to introduce Loken, Abaddon, Torgadon, and Little Horus. He has to introduce all the remembrancers. He has to introduce the setting. There's so much riding on this book, and it kind of caps it because he has to do so much. I do think it's a pretty good book though, and it gives you a nice insight into Horus. I just think like the first few Horus Heresy books probably should have been a bit longer, or they maybe should have added an extra book in between so it's not so rushed, so we could get a bit more of the setting. But I guess, I mean, the series is so long as it is. But I'm going to put it in memorable. It's still a very good book. It's probably better than Fabius Bile Progenitor or Primogenitor, but it's about that level in my opinion. Next we have Belisarius Cawl, The Great Work. After reading Gene Father, I wanted to know more about Belisarius Cawl, and this was the book basically named after him, and it's kind of detailing his life a bit and detailing what he is, because the man's just been around for 10,000 years. He's a giant Mechanicus robot. He has so many memories. He has to switch out his personality in slots, and he doesn't remember everything. And it's kind of him going like doing flashbacks from current day to back in the day before he became what he is now. I didn't particularly enjoy that because it kept just leaving it on a cliffhanger, and some flashbacks were just pointless. And I guess it kind of explains why he is like he is. I just didn't find this book that interesting. I mean, I'm going to be real. And then there's the whole arc with him and the Ultramarines looking for some Necron tech. I mean, it's an okay book. It kind of places next to Gene Father for me in the terms of if you have time to read it and you like the character, sure, but would I say you must read it? No. Now we go on to a proper heavy hitter, Hell's Reach. I remember reacting to the series like however many years ago when it came out on this channel. And yeah, man, the series was great. I listened to the audiobook. And I think they used excerpts of the audiobook for the YouTube series too. Yeah, this book is amazing. Obviously, Aaron Dembski Bowden, Black Templars vs Orcs on Armageddon. Honestly, this book is awesome. Like, this is one of the best 40k books you could read. I don't even need to say that much about it. It's going straight into must read. One of the best books I've read from Warhammer for sure. Next, we have Devastation of Bao. Now, this is another book that has a pretty good reputation. Obviously, Blood Angels in 40k. It's the whole Blood Angels vs Tyranids. Basically, Dante just calls back all of the Blood Angel successor chapters to fight against this massive Tyranid hive fleet heading for Bao. You have some very interesting characters. I've heard some people complain about how the voice acting on the audiobook was for the Blood Angels. I didn't really notice personally. I won't lie, I found that maybe the intro of this book is kind of boring, but once you start getting into the action of this book, it's pretty awesome. Like Mephiston, Dante, the Blood Angels have so many cool characters, man. I would put this book also into must read, especially if you want to stay up to date with what's happening in 40k. You definitely need to read this book. It is really good. I don't think you'd be disappointed. Obviously, if you want a physical copy though, it's gonna cost you a lot of money, but audiobook I would recommend for sure. Next, we have the Emperor's Legion, which is essentially the Custodes in the modern day. Kind of right before Gilliman comes back. Spoiler alert for the book, Gilliman actually comes to Terra in this book. This is kind of how Terra dealt with the fall of Cadia and all of that, and how it was kind of delayed, a delayed reaction, I guess, like because it's so far. Cadia had already failed, they didn't even realize. And you have the whole demon incursion on Terra. You have the Custodes. The main plot is the Custodes or Valerion, the main character, feels that the Custodes should be doing more than moping around the Imperial Palace and not doing anything, considering they're some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And you kind of see this book from three perspectives. You have, is it Tyron, who's like the assistant to the High Lords, which gives you that perspective. You have Valerian, who is the Custodes character, and then you have, I think it's Alea, who's like a Sister of Silence. So it's kind of bringing the Sisters of Silence back into play, and you have this whole sort of political type book. Gives you the state on Terra right now. And then later in the book, you have Gilliman come back and kind of institute the start of the Indomitus Crusade and make a bunch of changes and stuff like that. Pretty cool. I'd say it's pretty integral reading to understand somewhat of what's happening in the current setting. I would say it's very, very good. Like, I would recommend you read it. I would say it's a very, very good book. I was actually pleasantly surprised because I didn't think this book would be very interesting when I first bought it. Next, we have the sequel to that book, which I believe was called The Regent's Shadow. And I'm not going to lie, I was quite disappointed in this follow-up, considering the heights the first one hit, because it's kind of the fallout of what happens on Terra with the High Lords after Gilliman leaves, and some of the High Lords that lost their position were pretty pissed. They tried to do a coup. You see, like, obviously Tyron, I think Tyron is the main sort of assistant. He gives way to his like assistant now, and she's the assistant to the High Lords, and what's her name, Jack or something. While Tyron had power and influence to influence the situation in the first book, this woman can do nothing. She is useless. She is just there. She's narrating her side of the story, but she's basically a waste of time. And then you have Alea, who now the Sisters of Silence have been established again, I guess, but she has character regression in this. Like, she was meant to learn to control her temper from the first book, and she kind of made inroads and then become back here, and she's just gone back to full hothead crazy mode, and she had character regression. Valerian's still a very cool character, but I found this book to be quite boring up until the last few chapters where we get to the climax of the book. I've actually put this book in pretty forgettable. I did not really enjoy this at all. Next, we have Cadia Stands. I don't really want to talk about this. This is the worst book I've ever read in Warhammer. Personally, I don't find the whole Cadia thing that interesting. I haven't read The Fall of Cadia yet, but this was absolutely, positively the worst book I've read. It follows like this Imperial Guard regiment who are meant to be like the backup secret weapon, right, for the Cadia thing. They get basically squirreled away in some mountain somewhere, and we kind of follow these random battles on Cadia. Nothing too interesting from some Imperial Guard perspectives. There's some random Space Wolves thrown in, there's some random Night Lords thrown in for some fan service, but this book, it's not too long, and I found it incredibly boring. It's going in Heretic, bro. I'm sorry. This book, I couldn't wait for it to be over, and I think it's a pretty short book. I think it was only 6 hours on Audible. Yeah, I couldn't wait for it to be over. Honestly, it was horrible. So next we have Ahriman, the Ahriman series. I've read the first two. I need to read the rest. I have them in physical copy. But yeah, Ahriman Exile. This book was actually way better than I expected it to be. It kind of follows Ahriman following his exile from the Thousand Suns, as the title would suggest. He kind of just has forgotten who he is in a way, and he's like working as this menial space marine on this traitor ship, and he's like way more powerful than these people. He's way smarter than these people. He knows this, yet he just lets shit happen because he doesn't want to be found. He doesn't really want to do anything. He's kind of feeling sorry for himself after what he did. And then one day, this Thousand Sun scout ship comes to his ship that he's hiding out on, and he's asking his, I guess his higher, I don't know what you call it, like the higher ups of this traitor legion thing, this traitor warband, have they seen Ahriman, blah, blah, blah. And then at this point, Ahriman just unleashes his power, kills them all, and takes command of the ship. And yeah, man, it's just a great evolution of character. We get some cool loyalist marines who kind of start to help Ahriman, and I guess now they're traitors. I forget the guy's name. It's not Axios. It's Caden, I think, and someone else. Astrios, Caden and Astrios, and it's a pretty cool story of like Ahriman going around, and you have this cool battle at the end of Ahriman and Ammon, two of the most powerful psychers, or two of the most powerful Thousand Sun characters. Honestly, I'm going to put this one in very good. I really enjoyed this book. Very, very good book pertaining his character and him kind of coming back into the setting. Next, we have Ahriman Sorcerer, and talk about falling off from the first book. I mean, this is the second series in a row we've had this now, but Sorcerer for me, which is kind of a really mid book, like Ahriman is now betrayed. Not really the main character. There's other characters we follow because now he's controlling like some of the Thousand Suns fleet and all of that. You have characters trying to overthrow him. He's looking for like the, I forget what it's called, the something of Magnus, where all of Magnus's thoughts get written down, and he's trying to find that. The whole book is essentially a bunch of people plotting against Ahriman, and Ahriman interrogating this Inquisition person who knows where this thing he wants. It's, I forget what it's called. Meanwhile, Astrios gets captured by the Inquisition. He's getting interrogated by the Grey Knights, right? And then you just have this whole sort of mutiny thing that they're trying to do. But we get to the end of the book, and Ahriman was basically the plot armor. It's just that Ahriman knew the whole time exactly what was going to happen. He planned for everything. He's this all-knowing being, and he was playing 4D chess the whole time, and he knew everything. And I hate that trope, and it kind of pissed me off. I think this book is okay. I would probably stick it here, though, with the other books in Forgettable. Like, it kind of drops a lot from the first book, and hopefully the third book and the third and fourth book, Ahriman books are better, but yeah. Next, we have a Renegades Lord of Excess. This was a book I think came out last January, and I got it on release. Emperor's Children, one of my favorite legions for sure, so I was excited to read this. The Renegade series, though, is kind of like a filler arcs of random Space Marine traitors. This one follows Xantine, who is like this guy running from the Black Legion. He finds this planet who's been cut off from the Imperium and also has a Gene Stealer cult uprising, and he kind of lands at the perfect time because his ship is basically destroyed. Him and his warband land, and they take over the planet. They kill the Tyranids on the planet, and they take over. And it's kind of just this interesting side story of these Emperor's Children doing their thing on this planet, and all the treachery and everything that goes along with chaos. It's actually a pretty fun book. This isn't required reading by anything. I don't really remember the plot too heavy either. I'm going to put it here. It's definitely not one of the worst books I've read, though, but it is a pretty forgettable book. Still a 5-6 out of 10, but if you really like Emperor's Children, you definitely like the book. Next, we have another Dembski Bowden book, which is The Emperor's Gift. Now, this book is absolutely wicked, man. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, it starts off a little bit slow, as some books do, but this book is so awesome. It follows the Grey Knights, who obviously are pretty cool characters, and it follows this whole battle of the Grey Knights vs Angron, or the Grey Knights and Space Wolves vs Angron. And I forget the guy's actual name. They call him Blade Breaker because he shatters Angron's blade. Issue of the book comes that the Inquisition wants to kill everybody on this planet that saw Angron, because that's kind of protocol, and the Space Wolves refuse to let that happen. And we have this whole face-off of Space Wolves and then Inquisition and Grey Knights, and it's pretty cool. You have Logan Grimnar, and I think Bjorn the Fell-Handed appears. It's just such a good book. And you see like the inner workings of the Grey Knights, and it's just everything a Warhammer book as you want it. I'm going to put it in must read. It's so good. I think it's Dembski Bowden as well. This guy, he just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting. Next, we continue our Emperor's Children books. Fulgrim the Perfect Son now. Obviously, Fulgrim got brought back to the lore, brought back to the setting this year with a new model, and this was the kind of the book that brought him back. Honestly, I was kind of disappointed because Fulgrim does not appear in this book enough. Like, he's in like 3 or 4 scenes, and it's like, cool, you capture his essence very well, but it's kind of just like this one character doing anything to become Fulgrim's champion, right? And he fights against the Black Templars and gets absolutely wrecked, right? And he kind of triumphs and becomes Fulgrim's right-hand man or whatever, but like, I just found it kind of boring. I'm going to put it in forgettable, like, for all the hype that it had and I was expecting from it. Like, it just disappointed me in the end. Next, we have Dante. Now, Dante is I guess the precursor to Devastation of Bao, because it's kind of Dante's backstory, and if you like Blood Angels and you like Dante, I would definitely recommend reading this. I would put it in memorable. It's a very good book. It's not required reading by any stretch of the imagination, but if you like Blood Angels, you like Dante, it kind of gives a whole backstory on him and how he rose to power and a lot of the feats he's accomplished before the devastation of Bao. So yeah, great story there. Next we have Lucius the Faultless Blade. Now Lucius is an interesting character. This book though is a nothing book. I'm gonna be honest, it's just Lucius running around. I think Fabius Bao's in it. Like, I honestly can't really remember the whole plot of this. Like, they kind of capture Lucius and want him to fight in a gladiatorial arena, and he starts fucking people up, basically. I don't know. It's gonna go here. It's gonna go here. There's nothing too interesting about this book. Next, we have The Darkness in the Blood, which is essentially the direct sequel of Devastation of Bao, and it's the whole fallout after that, and essentially Mephiston's power is getting too great, and the whole crux of the book is Mephiston. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to kill him? What should they do? And then obviously Belisarius calls guy Quo, it was 87 or whatever, comes to say, oh, we could give you the Primaris surgery, and they put Mephiston as the first blood angel to do it, and it shows you a lot of lore on what actually goes on with the Dark Angels in terms of how Dante represents the kind of golden angel and Mephiston represents the Black Rage. I actually thought this book was really good. I'm going to put it in very good. I actually really enjoyed this a lot more than I was expecting to, because yeah. Now we move on to the Mephiston trilogy. Now the Mephiston trilogy, I think Mephiston is probably the most broken character in 40k because he's like the most powerful psyker in the universe. I'd be very interested to see him vs Ahriman in a battle, because Mephiston's feats are insane. Like, he's defeated like 2 greater demons at this point. He's defeated the Black Rage twice. He literally flew out of a ship as a red angel and destroyed a bunch of Tyranids. Like, this guy is a absolute beast. Mephiston 1 is actually a very interesting book. I think it comes before the devastation of Bao. The timeline for this is kind of all over the place. Like, they kind of mention things, and obviously when it comes to psychers, you never really know what the timeline is because they can freeze time and all sorts. But the first book essentially goes him going to this planet looking for a specific weapon, and there's a whole bunch of Zechian cults operating on there, and it's a whole battle for him and journey for him to go through this planet and find this weapon. And what kind of annoys me is the ending of this book. It's like, okay, we've done this. He's completed his battle. He's won the day. And it's funny because they kind of think Mephiston's a god too on this planet, which I guess is kind of true. But what annoys me, and it's not about this book, it's about the sequel. Like, they kind of just throw away the first book. Like, when they move on to the second book, it's like, okay, we don't even get any real closure on what happens. He kind of has a one throwaway line at, yeah, we solved it, and then they just move on. But yeah, this book is actually pretty good. Thinking back, I have a fond memory of listening to this book. I'm going to put it in very good. I actually really enjoyed it. Next, we have Mephiston 2. This is the one with the Necrons, and he goes to this Necron planet because his psychic link to the warp is being blocked by something, and there's this Necron device doing it, and you get some fun interactions with the Necrons here, and Ogryns also in this book. Are they Ogryns or are they just mutated humans? I can't remember, but yeah, it's pretty cool little side mission of Mephiston going to this Necron planet and finding this device and having an interaction with this one Necron is so funny. This kind of, but one of the main characters in this series is like this apprentice that Mephiston has, and I keep forgetting his name. It's something so simple as well. Like, is it Leandros? I think it might be Leandros. He kind of has this sneaking suspicion in the whole series that Mephiston is some sort of traitor and some sort of chaos spawn, and like, he keeps trying to prove that he's not. And in this book, he's kind of, in the first book, he's very present. In the second book, he's kind of off doing his own thing, and he kind of becomes a heretic in this book. But yeah, there's actually some very cool things that happen in this book. I think it's quite funny. Any book that has Necrons in it tends to be quite funny, because I'm going to put it in memorable. You kind of see this one Necron lord of the planet who just absolutely is out of his mind. He's talking to a dead body. He's playing chess, like this version of like chess all day long, and he's getting his Necrons to bomb a mountain because there's no one there, but he thinks there is. Pretty funny. And finally, we have Mephiston City of Light. I'm not gonna lie, this book is bordering on heretic. This is the final installment of Mephiston chasing this one demon who he's not really mentioned too much in book 2. In book 1, he's a lot more mentioned, this Zechian demon who's kind of his nemesis. And at this point, this takes place after the devastation of Bao and Darkness and Blood, where Mephiston is now Primaris Marine. He's going around hunting this Zechian demon out, and essentially he goes to this planet that has some traitors on it. It's just him looking for this demon, basically. That's all he's doing the whole time. The only thing I really remember from this book is that Mephiston can split his soul into 3 separate parts. He has Calistarius, which is who he was before the Black Rage, Mephiston, and then like Primaris Mephiston, right? And he splits it into 3 different parts where he fights 3 different battles at once. He goes to the planet of the sorcerers, where one of his shards is it's actually crazy. If you want a power scale Mephiston, you should read this book. But the ending doesn't really make much sense. Like, spoiler alert, like, he kind of sacrifices Astrios to defeat the Zechian demon. He kind of does another 5D chess like Ahriman does to destroy it. And I think that's one thing about Psyker books that pisses me off in Warhammer. They never really use their abilities properly. There's always like some sort of 5G, haha, I knew I was doing this, blah, blah, blah. I'm so smart trick to tie in the plot when the plot's making no sense. And the whole Astrios sacrifice doesn't make no sense. It's kind of like Mephisto knew he had turned traitor the whole time. I'm gonna stick it in forgettable. Honestly, this book is, I would say, is maybe better than like Lucius, but it's bordering on pretty shit. And then finally we have the last two books I've read, which is False God and Galaxy in Flames. I have a lot to say on this, but maybe I won't say it in this video because we're already quite far in. But False Gods, I actually really like this book. I know a lot of people don't like this book. I've been watching some videos and a lot of people have issues with this book. And I understand the two main issues. The two main issues for me in this book is, one, the major time skip from, I think it's like a decent chunk of months from Horus Rising to False Gods. And at this point, Horus is kind of starting to unravel a lot more than he was in Horus Rising. And there's this whole bit where he's allegedly been sectioned off with Erebus, but we don't really know what Erebus has been doing and telling him. So I'd have liked to know that. Maybe they could have inserted a short story, or maybe they could have made an extra book or something for that. The second thing I've seen a lot of complaints on is like Horus losing to that one little chaos spawn and getting stabbed is pretty crazy, but I don't think it's that mad. I do kind of question why Abaddon and little Horus don't think to try and contact the Emperor in any way. Like, that bothers me. Also Horus making his decision at the end when Magnus is there and Erebus is there, and he kind of just says, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna do my own thing and not listen to either of you, but just trust Chaos. And I guess he would have died if he didn't take the side of Chaos at that point, but that does bother me. But apart from that, I thought this book was really good at just dissecting the mental of Horus throughout the whole book. You can see how he kind of descends into he's not good enough, because Horus has this weird fucking notion in his head that he is the greatest thing since sliced bread and he also isn't good enough. Because you see in this book, he's like, oh, some of my brother Primarchs didn't like me as War Master. They're just waiting for me to mess up, right? I think he mentions Gilliman and the Lion thought they were better, and then he kind of, that bothers him a lot more. And he also takes every failure personally. Like, if something happens, and Erebus is basically constructing all these failures for him, right? Which I guess is making Erebus the super mastermind behind it. But like, Horus takes everything so personally, and Erebus just riles him up to the point where he kind of manipulates him into being corrupted. And you just see Horus's mindset go like this. And you see why he turns traitor, because this brother is so concerned with himself. He's so selfish that he can't handle that he's not remembered. Like, his whole thing is, I need to be remembered. And then you see on the one scene that sticks with me from this book is when him and Erebus, or I guess it's Sir Janus, but Erebus, in his image, and they go to this planet. And essentially he shows him the current setting of all of these poor people doing like a pilgrimage to the statue of the Emperor and treating him as a god. And then you have like the loyalist Primarchs there, also with statues. Horus doesn't really notice that these are certain Primarchs, right? He reads out the names of who they are, but he doesn't really compute it. And he's like, I'm not there. He doesn't even notice that none of the other Primarchs, some of the others are missing. He just goes, I'm not there. And that shit I was like, yeah, this makes sense to why he fell to Chaos. I actually really like this book, man. I mean, it is, by definition, it is a must-read book. So is Horus Rising. I'm going to put it in very good, though, in terms of ranking. But if you want to know the setting, you have to read those books. There is no skipping them. And then Galaxy in Flames, I don't think it was on the level of False Gods, although I listened to this whole book in one day. So that might... you take from that what you will. This book is a lot more battling. It's the whole Istvan 3 situation where the loyalists get purged. You see a lot of Loken in this book, and it's basically just the outfall of False Gods. And you see Horus. The one thing that bothers me about Horus, though, is this brother does not fight at all in these books. He's just there. He's just behind a desk, and he complains about being behind a desk and how he's a warrior and how he's going to be made irrelevant, right? That's his whole problem, that he doesn't want to be made irrelevant yet or forgotten, yet he doesn't do any battling himself, which is very strange. But this book is very good. At this point, it's a full divide. You see the full divide. You've got some very cool characters like Tarvitz and Lucius and all of that in here. I'm going to put it in very good right next to False Gods. Very, very good book. Obviously another must read though, but I wouldn't say it's as good as these books, but you got to read them for the setting, but that's kind of different. But yeah, these books aren't perfectly ranked in order. I would definitely say that these are appropriate rankings for the books I've read though. These ones, like, I could read them time and time again. They're so good. Some of the best in the setting. You have these books here, also very good. You'd definitely enjoy them if you read them, in my opinion. These books, pretty good, you know, a solid read, nothing life-changing, but they're pretty good. And then you have these, which... honestly, if you've got too much time on your hands and you want some filler episodes, a lot of these feel like filler episodes, I'm not going to lie. Some of them are a bit more integral to the lore than others, like, obviously, and Encadia stands, I don't even want to talk about it, man. That shit is ass. I'm sorry, bro. Justin T, it was Justin T or Justin D Hill? I can't remember. That brother, I don't know what he did to put that on a paper, but yeah, don't do it again, please. Yeah. Thank you though. But yeah, that's my list. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Once I read some more books, I'll update my list. If you have any recommendations, let me know. The next book I will probably finish is Flight of the Eisenstein. Currently listening to that. I also have been reading The Dark Imperium book 1 for a while, and I have a bunch of books on my shelf that I've bought and not read. Think Titanicus, the Night Lords Omnibus, obviously the other Araman books. I will get to them when I have time. But yeah, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you all in the next one.